Okay, so this is a quick tutorial on musical form and structure for adding markers into various DAWs. Why would you do this? Well, we've already talked about how keeping the sessions organized, regardless of what software you are working in, can make a big difference in terms of your efficiency and how much creative control you have in the moment as you're working on different things. So, for example, over here in this Pro Tools session on the left, this is a scratch track, but you can see here that it's not just a series of 8 tracks. Everything is labeled. We have a way to identify exactly what everything is in terms of sources and what each track is. The issue currently is simply that when you look at the overall session here on the screen, there's clearly a lot of stuff going on, but it's kind of hard to tell what's actually going on when in terms of, oh, there's a verse and there's a chorus, or there's part 1 and there's a theme, or whatever. We have no idea. And sure, we can play and listen to it, but if we don't mark things, this is going to be very, very difficult. So how do we add markers in? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to a blank area here in my session to show you how to do this. First thing you want to do is you want to make sure that the marker ruler in Pro Tools, in this case, is available to you. So the way you do that in Pro Tools is over here. So a little black drop-down menu. Click on that, and you can see here the word markers. It doesn't have a check next to it. So I'm going to click on that so that there's a check, and now I have the markers ruler. Now, anywhere that the playhead is, this is this blue down arrow here, that's my playhead. And anywhere that I place that, and right now, since I'm in grid mode, it's following the grid, by the way. The grid is set to 1 bar. I could change that to whatever I want, but I'm going to leave it at 1 bar for this example. And you'll notice that it's only going to move to specific bars. In fact, if I zoom in a little bit where you can see every single bar numbered, you'll notice that I cannot actually go in between any measures right now because I've got it set for the grid to be at 1 measure. This is just like with notes, like we've been playing around with before when it comes to quantization and things of that nature. But in this case, it's for the playhead, as we're going to put in some markers. So in any case, let's say I decide I want to put a marker at measure 180. Place that on the playhead. And now I've got a couple of different ways I can do this. One way is I can go over here and I can use this plus sign on the markers ruler. Remember, there are other rulers here, meter, tempo, and others you can pull up from that black drop-down menu. But markers is the one we want. I can use this plus sign. Or if I want, I can hit the Enter key on my computer keyboard. Now be very careful here because Enter does not have the same functional purpose in Pro Tools as Return. If you press the Return key, you're not going to be able to put in a marker. What it's going to do is it's going to take you all the way back to the beginning of your session. The Return key is actually part of the transport up here. So you want to make sure you hit the right key, which is the Enter key. But in any case, either one, the plus sign by the markers ruler or the Enter key on the computer keyboard, and you will see this window pop up. And it says New Memory Location. Now, if you want to call it, in this case, it says it's going to call it Location 5, because I've put a few others in that you'll see in a minute in a different part of the session. But in any case, you can call it whatever you want. I suggest you call it something related to the musical structure that you're using. So in this case, this is a song that I've got up here that's actually using verses and choruses and such. So just for the sake of argument, I'm just going to put this example here is going to say verse. And then I hit OK. And now you'll notice there's this little shield-looking thing in yellow, and it's marked verse. Now, if I don't like where it is, I can move it. Again, because I'm on the grid, it's going to follow the grid parameters. If I click on it, it immediately moves the playhead to it. I can also double-click on it, and now I can get back here and I can change it. Oh, no, it's not a verse. Actually, it is a chorus. And I can hit OK. Again, able to move it around if I want. If I want to get rid of it, literally just grab it and drag it into the session. You'll notice here that it turns into a trash can. Let go. Marker's gone. Bring that back here real quick with an undo Command Z. But the point is, you've got control. You can mark things around. So why does that matter? Well, since we've added the markers ruler back into the session, now let's go back and take a look at that original session here. And you can see all of a sudden, I can tell what's happening where. You can see I've got pre-V verse 2. Pre-V2, it's marked, but it means pre-verse 2. I've got verse 2 here. Let me zoom out just a little bit so you can see things. So I can actually see the entire arrangement of this piece of music now. And suddenly, between that and having the tracks labeled, I've got a really easy way to zero in on things so I know exactly what's going on. Again, let me quickly take the markers away for just a moment. This information hasn't changed at all, but it's really hard to tell what's going on where quickly and intuitively. If I put the markers back in, see how easily it is now to see what's going on in the piece? And this would obviously work for any style of music in any genre with any instruments. It's just a way to keep you organized. Your listener's never going to hear the markers, as it were, but this is going to help you to run more efficiently. So that's how this works in Pro Tools. Okay, so now we're in GarageBand. The premise behind the need for these markers is the same. There's no real difference here. It's just that GarageBand is going to do things a little bit differently. As you would expect at this point with GarageBand, some of the things it does, and it kind of just makes assumptions for you, and it's a little more user-friendly. On the other hand, some of the things it does are kind of frustrating depending on the particular musical forms and structures you want to use, but there's always ways around them. In any case, this isn't really a particular session. It's just a new project that I opened up and I put a drum track on, but we can still take a look at how we can lay out the formal structure of the piece if there was one here, in the same way that we just did in Pro Tools. So anyway, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go over to Track, and you're going to want to go Show Arrangement Track. And what this is going to do is create a new little bar here that says Arrangement. And basically, all you're going to do is hit the plus sign. And when you hit the plus sign, you'll notice here it gave my first 8 measures. It said Intro. Now, GarageBand is going to default to 8 measures. And if I hit it again, well, now I've got a verse that's 8 measures. And if I hit it again, I've got an 8-measure chorus, and so on. And it'll keep adding those things. So obviously, this will work. But what if the first thing we hear isn't the intro, or we don't want to call it the intro? Maybe we want that to actually be right off the bat, we want it to be a chorus. Well, what you do is very simply, you go up to the name of the section, and there's a little arrow here. You can click on the name, and you can see it's got the most common song structure elements all ready to go. You can choose any one of these you want if you want to change it to chorus. But you could also go to rename, and you could say chorus. You could add on to it. So chorus intro, chorus start, let's say. Let's use that. And now it's called chorus start. And I can do this with any of these, the verse here and so on down the line. I can change these to reflect a more accurate musical structure that I am currently working in, whatever that might be. What do you do if it's not supposed to be 8 measures? Maybe it's only supposed to be 4 measures. So what you can do is go up to the right edge of it here, click, and then simply drag, and we'll make this 4 measures. So the problem here is it wants to basically continue the chorus straight to my verse. Now it's stretched my verse now. Instead of being 8 measures, it is now 12 measures. But I don't want it to be 12 measures. I actually want it to be 8. So now I've got the same issue again. I've got to go back in and figure out how to do that. And you'll notice that as I'm making these alterations, it'll tell me what my positioning is. Currently, it'll tell me the total overall length. And so that's at least a nice handy feature that we've got here. So now we've got a 4-measure chorus start intro, an 8-measure verse, an 8-measure chorus, and so on. Again, you can change these around. You can modify as you need, but if you can imagine a similar project like the Pro Tools session I just showed you with lots of tracks and lots of things going on in terms of the musical structure and form, this arrangement track is going to help you a lot in GarageBand to keep things organized and to help you work more efficiently. Okay, so here we are now in Ableton Live. And again, this is just a blank set. We don't actually even need any content just to show you how to place the markers. And once again, the premise for why we would want markers is the same. It's to keep you organized. The listener will not have any idea, but it's going to help you work more efficiently and help you make better creative choices, more directly responding to what it is that you want to be making. So in any case, the first thing we need to do is we need to get out of session view and we need to go up to what's called arrangement view, and that's those 3 little lines that are grayed out currently. We're going to click them so that they turn orange, and that takes us to this view, which gives us a timeline across here. Now, very similar to Pro Tools, very similar to Garageband, the playhead is going to be important as far as where things get placed. So just to start with, I am going to put the playhead right at measure 17 here. I'm going to go up here to Create, and I am simply going to do Add Locator. So there we go. Locators in Ableton are basically the same as the arrangement marks in Garageband. They are the same as markers in Pro Tools. So you'll notice to start with it calls it 1, and you could leave it 1, but let's call this Theme A just for the sake of this example. So now it's called Theme A. Now I can, just like in the other pieces of software, I can move it, I can change it around. I can do any number of things as far as reorganizing my structure depending on whatever it is that I've created here in Ableton. If I right-click on it, I can delete it, I can rename it, and so on. I can even set this to be where the piece starts if I want. So there's lots of options here. The idea of the markers is not to be a busy task. Like I said, it's really just to keep you organized so that you're working more efficiently in whatever DAW you choose to be creating in. Hope that's helping, and I hope that this will give you a little more of an efficient process as you continue to create the awesome music that you've been working on.